Modern society, my nerds, it's a very beautiful thing. Think about it. We have so many comforts as a modern society. We have the internet. We have beautiful things like devices tailored to a very small hobby because we are a small hobby. Globalization and what we have in 2025, outside of the obvious world-ending events, is a beautiful thing. I love modernity. I consider us one of the most luckiest meatbags out there. But no matter how beautiful society might appear to us, you best be sure that society appears way more beautiful for the wealthy 1%. You know, the ones that go on their own yachts and they relax there and they have someone feeding them caviar while they ride a jet ski and they have a fine cigar on the other end. I don't know what wealthy people do, I'm just assuming. You know, the ones that go to eyes wide shut slumber parties with their friends and they have a wholesome time. Those people, my dear nerds, I am convinced that if they are to enter this hobby, they won't buy a peasant handheld like the Mio Mini. Even though I love the Mio Mini, I'm a peasant at heart. They buy a glamorous 1% kind of person handheld. They buy something like this beautiful thing. My dear nerds, this is probably the most luxurious, the most polished, the most nicely feeling handheld that I ever in my life came across. And it's not because it's the best in performance, it's not the thinnest. This is one of the biggest chunky boys. But this feels like one of those handhelds that people would enjoy on a yacht. People would enjoy this while redrawing the geopolitical landscape with their friends. Somebody would play this while figuring out how to maximize multi-billion-dollar profits. This is the Ayaneo Pocket Micro, my first Ayaneo device that I ever got, and I have to say I am deeply impressed by this. But anyway, before I go on, I just want to say that the Ayaneo Pocket Micro that you see here, and by that I mean here, was provided to me by the very nice guys at LitNXT. LitNXT, I tip my hat down to you. This is one very impressive device. And bear in mind, this is not a paid review. Like always, all thoughts here are my own. Regardless who sends me review devices, if this review device would not be good, you would be the first one to hear it from me. Anyway, let me start you with what's probably the most luxurious freaking unboxing that I ever did. This packaging right here is sort of like a velvety kind of paper. It's so freaking hard to describe. I looked at this packaging when it arrived as if I was a very, very dumb pigeon. I had the problem finding how to unbox it. It's actually sort of like an envelope. You have to push this down. But first, let's quickly get a glance. The Ayaneo Pocket Micro that you can buy from LitNXT has 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. I'm mentioning this because there's also a 6 gig, 128 gig of storage variant, but this is a more or less special gold edition. Took me way more than I want to admit that this was supposed to be unboxed like this. Then you get the actual box of the product. We have a 3.5-inch display. This is a 3x2 display, meaning that this handheld, which has Android and quite a bit of power, it has a Helio G99, which allows you to play up to PlayStation 2. But most importantly, the 3x2 aspect ratio basically allows you to focus all of that power on proper integer scaled GBA. You might be asking me, Vlad, why the heck does so much power make sense for a GBA device? I can't tell you that. It's quite a conundrum. The thing is, you get to use all the most intensive shaders that you might think of with this kind of horsepower in this bad boy. And when you use super complicated RetroArch shaders, you really need the performance overhead. All joysticks, which is always nice to have, vibration motors, premium body, and heck to the holy poop on a stick does this feel premium. There's micro SD card slot as well, their own Ayaneo's home launcher, which I don't care about, and you will never see me caring about stuff like this. You should always customize your handheld, okay? Install Niagara, install ESD, whatever you want, but make it your own. I would actually want these companies to not do their own launchers and to basically allow the users to customize them as they would. That's why YouTubers are for, to make tutorials on this. And it also has active cooling. And then we have another cute thing here, which has indents for the little sticks so that they don't get damaged during the transportation. You see, I told you this unboxing is freaking premium. I can't describe it otherwise. It's one of the most bourgeois unboxings that I ever did. Let's pretend that I know what I'm doing here and take the handheld by the sticks like other YouTubers are doing. Then we have some premium black foam. Have you ever noticed how black foam looks more premium than the normal foam? I don't know why other companies don't do it. And after this, you see, this is like a lasagna. We have a ton of layers here. We have another envelope with what I'm guessing is the... Actually didn't dig this far. Certificate of qualification. Okay, this is a February bad boy right here. We have some manuals, and last but not least, we have yet another little box. This box is like a matryoshka nesting doll, and here we have a cable. Come on, you freaking cable. As I always tell you, my dear nerds, don't throw away the cables even when they're stubborn and they don't want to exit their freaking box. Anyway, there's a USB-C cable there. You see it? It's a stubborn one. Sit in the box, I don't care. As punishment for not wanting to exit, we're gonna put it right back here until the end of time, until I forget that this box even exists somewhere in my drawer. Now let's get back to this beautiful bad boy. My dear nerds, as I said, this is one of the most premium freaking mother flippers that I ever had in my hand. This is a full metal body. It feels quite heavy in a good way. You know how a Samsung phone feels heavy? I was never traditionally a fan of that, but with handhelds, this is the first one that I felt where that extra weight basically makes me feel confident with it. You see, this is so dense. If you're going camping, you can use this to like make fire with another sharp piece of rock. Well, I'm kidding, don't do that. This is one hefty little bad boy. I don't know why I said little, because it's actually quite thick. For a reference, I have a very skinny case on my phone, and if I am to put them side by side, you can get the idea. It's quite a thick little guy. I am willing to forgive it. You might think that this is too thick to be practical, but you are wrong. You see, ergonomics are a very, very mysterious kind of mistress. You don't know what kind of way ergonomics could work. I don't know. Usually, some very weird shape can end up being very ergonomic, and you wouldn't think so until you try it. Well, thickness, apparently, is yet another variable that makes or breaks ergonomics. And I learned about myself that I love a thicker handheld. I love a thicker handheld in my hand, and don't make jokes in the comment section. I know this is low-hanging fruit. I'm just saying this looks amazing, and this feels amazing in the hand. Giggity. But anyway, let's quickly check it out. We have L1, L2, R1, R2 buttons, you know, the shoulder buttons. We have the volume buttons here. A fingerprint scanner, which is a first in handhelds for me. It's not the best, it's not the worst. It does its job. I gave Ayaneo my fingerprint. I hope it enjoys that information about me. At first, I was thinking that this is a flap door of some kind, but these are actually navigation buttons. You see, you can go back to the most recent app and all of that good stuff. We have two button firing speakers, which sound pretty good for a handheld. A USB Type-C here. This works with any charger. I charged it with my 68 watt phone charger. A micro SD card slot, which is actually a door flap, like I suspected this one to be. And then the screen. This is perhaps what I love the most about it. You see, I thought that this gold variant would make the screen look as if it has bigger bezels because of this top and bottom gold line here. But in real life, once I got it, I ended up loving this because everything around it is pure screen. The bezels of the screen are still tucked away under these actual golden bezels. So what you have here is simply screen, and that's it. And this screen is just a joy to look at for hours and basically hallucinate at the screen, because if you think about it, same with books by the way, it dawned on me how interesting it is that we as human creatures, we get wrapped up and look at screens and books for hours on end, and I don't think there's any other animal that does this. Anyway, random inserted interesting thought here, but if we are to stare at a screen for hours, this is one of the best ones to stare at for this form factor. You see, it's a 3x2, like I said initially. I'm gonna show off GBA in a bit, but I wanted to show a PS2 game. You see, the MediaTek G99 that's in this thing is a 6nm chip that kind of does the job in the sense that you can play, let's say, 50%, 60% of PS2 titles on it. For the rest, you might have to play with the settings, turn down the internal resolution, and all of that good stuff. I'm basically, for Legacy of Kain Defiance, I'm barely hanging on to 60 FPS here. If we are to look at the graphics settings, I have this at 1.25x, so I could still take it down a bit when I would occasionally have slowdowns. But yeah, for this form factor, you get PS2, most of it at least. The sticks are something that I particularly like a lot. You see, they have this rubber coating around them. They kind of almost stick or adhere to the finger. They're not really slippery. You feel as if they are an extension of your thumbs, which is a very good thing. And the D-pad is a bit mushy, but you can totally use it. Realistically speaking, the D-pad would get the job done. I don't see anyone complaining about the D-pad. Well, even if there are people out there, personally, I didn't feel bothered by it. But the main claim to fame with the Ayaneo Pocket Micro is GBA. You know, the image might not seem super clean through this camera, but you can see every pixel here because of the integer scaled image. This is the kind of situation, the kind of use case where you really shouldn't pollute the image with CRT filters or warp filters, so you get that CRT curvature. You shouldn't do any of that. Just enjoy GBA in its purest, because there's arguably no better way to play GBA games than in a handheld like this, because of this screen. This is optimized for GBA, both in terms of aspect ratio and in terms of resolution. I'm pretty sure this has 3x GBA integer scale. I think it's 3x, maybe it's 2x, but I'm gonna go with 3x here. This is actually, I think, the highest quality way, the best experience that I had with GBA. We may not have yachts, my dear nerds, or we may not have real estate or rent money, or we may not be able to survive by the lake and drink fine wine that isn't out of a box. But at the end of the day, we can enjoy the little moments in life that make us truly rich. Tell me, my dear nerd, what would you actually prefer? To have a house by the lake, to have 5 cars, to have a bank account with so many numbers that it would take you 10 minutes to even say the actual number? Or would you want a premium feeling handheld? Because any answer beside the premium feeling handheld is the wrong answer. You should want the premium feeling handheld because, well, you should want the premium feeling handheld because at the very because at the very least this is achievable. And there's the argument to be made that we shouldn't live our life just wishing about stuff. We should enjoy the stuff that we can have. Well, let me just put this way. This is achievable. This is a little drop of luxury at a good price. This is 200 something dollars, while a yacht might be way, way further down the line than this little bad boy. And this little bad boy allows you to play GBA in the most high quality way possible. Does a yacht let you do that? Does it? No, that thing just floats underwater. It's useless. This is made out of actual metal. I don't know where I'm going with this, but but this is actually a very nice handheld. The real pleasant surprise, however, my dear nerdy creatures, is PSP. You can play it like this, like a freaking peasant with black bars, but PSP is a console that is 16 by 9, and from 16 by 9 to 3 by 2, well, that really ain't a big leap. You can stretch to fit this image without actually feeling like you're doing something wrong. And nobody will know. This is the most important thing. If you stretch to fit, nobody will know that you're a heretic and nobody will judge you for it. Look how beautiful this looks like this. Tell me this doesn't look beautiful. This is a bona fide PSP device that's also optimized for GBA. And I love it for this. The God of War that you see here is running at 3x. God of War for me was always a misunderstood game. You're basically a bold Greek guy that just wants to be understood, and nobody wants to communicate with this guy. Everybody just gives him tasks. No wonder he's like closed off and he doesn't talk a lot. Basically, all of PSP works like a dream at 3x, and it's just a very nice experience. Here's Lara with her winter suit while she wants to find treasures in the snowy mountain. But just to go back to GBA for a second, look at these picture-perfect integer-scaled pixels that we have here. Really, this is the one chance where you really shouldn't use any sort of filters. This image is just, it's just too accurate not to appreciate. But there are also a few drawbacks with this handheld, my dear nerds. It's not all gravy, it's not all honey. We need to also talk about the bad things here. And I would say that the first bad thing about this handheld is because of its metal body, you can actually feel the heat on the back when it gets really warmed up and you really work it. Metal transfers heat, you get to feel the backside as being a bit warm. Now, this is not the end of the world because you hold your hands like this and you don't really put your hands in the center here where most of the warmth is. But this is something that I felt that I needed to mention to you fine people. And the second is, you see, I personally like the rubber surface on these joysticks, but you need to pay very attention not to stick your claws, I meant your nails in this, because you can quickly leave marks on this rubber. I think I actually have a mark there. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, it's there. Last but not least, but this applies to most handhelds, don't expect this to be water resistant. This has more holes than my version of happiness in this world. You simply cannot fight it. You might as well accept it for what it is and push on forward and and try to make the best of it. And even though I said that I liked the overall weight of this guy, I'm not sure if everyone will be on the same page with me. This is a good handheld to, my point of reference with handhelds is my fictional scenario where I'm on a train and I'm curious if I were on a train, would I want to whip the handheld out or not? Would I enjoy it, or would I sit there like a paranoid badger looking around? Are people judging me? Are people looking at me? Is my handheld public worthy? Now, in real life, you should have that level of I don't give a flying chocolate fudge, and you shouldn't care. But some handhelds are basically more inconspicuous, more subtle than others, and I think this is one of them. When you hold it like this kind of looks like an industrial grade grill from the back. It doesn't really look like a handheld. It looks like something your boss gave you from the factory and you're a welder. This looks like some sort of equipment like that. Like, look at this industrial design. I love this, but the weight of this is something that would probably affect you if you were traveling on the train and you only had a tiny backpack or a tiny purse or tiny fanny pack or whatever you might be wearing. Usually I like to keep my handhelds in the back pocket of a shirt, of a jacket more rather. But now that freaking warmth is coming, I will carry this in a tiny backpack. Compared to a plastic handheld, this actually has way more weight compared to that. Again, not the end of the world, I'm basically nitpicking here. I just thought that you should know about this stuff because, quite frankly, I can't find more wrong with it. We can talk about the performance. The MediaTek G99 isn't really a powerful SoC. It is meant to be power efficient, but not really powerful. You can play PSP and PS2. You can play most of that stuff. However, unlike a Snapdragon 865, you will have to do some tinkering. Although, and I know I keep coming back to this for the millionth time, but you need to consider the build quality and the intent of this. This is meant to be the best possible way in which you can play GBA. Like I said, this is the kind of handheld that very wealthy people, I imagine, asterisks, I just imagine, would use on a yacht or on a jet ski or while buying a mountain or something like that. This is not a peasant handheld. This is not a handheld for the inferior social stratum like me. This is a handheld for people who want the best possible experience and best possible feeling in the hand. But at the same time, the premium quality that it oozes, that it projects, doesn't mean that it's one of the more performant out there. I just want to make this clear. I didn't even bother testing Switch on this. I stopped at PS2. You know the kind of games on PS2 that you would want to play. You need to make up your mind if they are intensive or not. For me, with Legacy of Kain Defiance and Blood Omen 2 and Blood Rain, those games run very nicely here, but if you run something more intensively, you would have to tinker. Do you want this to be the thing in which you play GBA? Because if you want it for GBA and every other console besides GBA, but GBA first, this is the best on the market, except the best that I came across. I need to put a disclaimer there. However, this is not the best performance per buck that you can get, but for GBA, it's the best experience per buck that you can get. And one small shout out that I should give, it has that resemblance to a Famicom controller, which I personally really love. That also adds some nostalgia points right there. But yeah, this is more or less my thoughts on this device. What do you think about it? Is it worth your attention? Is it worth buying one? If you want one, get it from the link in the video description. That also helps the channel out. That's an affiliate link and your support would be appreciated. But my dear nerds, as I said, this is all from me. Let me know what you think. I'll be reading all of the comments below. I'll see you in the next video. As always, I hope you know who loves you. Hug. I do. Wait. Before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Now you can go and live out the rest of your life. Bye.